Well, hello. This is a re-recording of the devotional video from Friday, March the 5th. My name is Pastor Jonathan Hart of Robertsdale United Methodist Church, and thank you for joining us for this Lenten devotional as we travel through the Gospel of Mark. Today we're looking at Mark chapter 6, verses 45 through 56, where we have this really snapshot story, unlike any other story, where Jesus is walking on water. So what just happened is Jesus has fed 5,000. His disciples have picked up 12 basketfuls of leftovers, and we see two words that we see often in Mark's gospel, the word immediately and the word amazed. So immediately, Jesus says to his disciples to go across the lake, and he goes up on the mountainside to pray. And later in the night, Jesus is looking out and he sees them struggling against the water because the wind is great and the waves are great. And Jesus goes out to him. And when they see him, they are amazed. In fact, they think he's a ghost. And Jesus was going to just go ahead and walk on to the other side. And it's almost as if the story is saying the disciples shouldn't be surprised. Jesus was going to walk across the lake to the other side. His disciples would meet him there in the boat. But because they saw him and engaged him, he decided to join them and get in the boat. And it said that the reason they were amazed is they did not understand about the loaves that Jesus had just multiplied. So what in the world is going on in this story? Well, this is unlike any story. We have multiple feeding miracles. We have multiple healing miracles. We have multiple casting out of impure demons or spirits. But no other story like Jesus walking on the water. And yet there's almost this tone in the story that the disciples shouldn't be surprised, and neither should we. Why is that? Well, because the story is showing that Jesus has sovereignty over the natural world. And hasn't he already shown that? In quieting the winds and the waves during the storm when he was asleep in the boat, in multiplying things like bread and fish, hasn't Jesus already shown that he has authority and sovereignty over the natural world? Now, you and I hear that word sovereignty, and we immediately might jump to the conclusion that Jesus is God, right? Nobody can have power like this. But actually, before we go there, we have to put our mind and ears into the minds and ears of Mark's congregation in the days of the early church, in the early days, in the days of Jesus. And that is that they would have been looking for God's Messiah. The beginning of the Gospel of Mark says, the beginning of the gospel or good news of Jesus, the Messiah, the Son of God. So before they equated Jesus with God, they first had to believe him to be the Messiah. And this is actually what Peter is going to confess in just a few chapters from now. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. You are the Messiah. You are the anointed one. Because God's appointed Messiah is the one who has sovereignty over Israel and therefore has sovereignty over the entire world. Jesus is walking on the lake, or more literally, the sea. And in the Jewish pool of imagery, the sea represented a lot more than just a body of water. They didn't have scuba diving gear like we do today. They had no idea what really lurked under the water. They had some idea because they would pull fish up out of the water, but they would have horror stories of people going out to sea and never returning. They had no idea what truly lurked underneath those chaotic, unstable, surface waters of the deep. They didn't know how deep it went, so their imaginations would run wild. Figures like in the book of Job of Leviathan and Behemoth, they would conjure up sea monsters, right? And so the sea came to represent so much more. So in Revelation, when it says the sea was no more, that means a lot more than there is no water in the new heaven and new earth. It means that what the sea represents is no more. And what the sea represented was the realm of evil, chaos, fear, and the unknown. And so in walking on the sea, Jesus is showing that he has sovereignty over the natural world. He's also showing that he has sovereignty over and authority over the chaotic, evil realm of fear, the realm of the unknown. He's sovereign over all that. N.T. Wright says something really provocative to me in his Mark for Everyone commentary, and that is that Jesus is not just showing us that he has the unbelievable power of God to walk on water. He's actually demonstrating the authority that humans were always supposed to have in being sovereign over God's natural creation. Now let that sink in for a minute. What he's suggesting is that all humans are supposed to be able to stand sovereignly over nature, because that was the commandment that God gave Adam, that Jesus is actually displaying the role, as Paul calls him, of being the last Adam, that what the first Adam got wrong, Jesus got right. So Jesus is sovereign over the natural world in a way that we were all meant to be. He's the figurehead of God's authority in human form. He is the Messiah. So my question for you today is simple. As we find this out about the person of Jesus and the sovereignty that he has over evil, over what makes us fearful, over what is chaotic, over what is unknown, what does that look like for you? What evil are you anxious about, bothered by, disturbed, and troubled over? What is uncertain in a way that may stir up anxiety or fear in you? What chaos are you dealing with? And how does it help you today to know that Jesus stands sovereignly over all of that? How do you need to invite him to stand in authority on top of those troubled waters, that he might also bring peace to your soul as you let him in your boat? This is Pastor Jonathan with Robertsdale UMC. God bless you. Grace and peace.